All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. We are going to perform, hopefully, a rollback. And in this hypothetical situation, we are, I guess, on an S1 or an S2 incident. And what we want to do is to roll back to the previous stable package. So I'm going to share my screen. I guess I'm going to share it all. So yeah, okay. So now, the first thing that I want to do now that we want to roll back is like, well, we need to find the documentation, right? So um, I don't have it handy, so I guess I can just how to perform a rollback in Gitlab. And well, this is the official documentation, so I don't want that. So I don't want that. No, I don't want Stack Overflow, definitely not. I guess it is not here. I guess I'm just gonna go directly into the release docs. Okay, so Runbooks. What to do in case of an incident. This might be it. Well, there is an outage. Incident call. Let's assume we already have one and that we are on the incident call. I'm just going to search for rollback. Okay, here it is, rollback. If the deployment contains background database migration, this one is supposed to be excluded. So I think we talked the other time about fixing this one because it is supposed to be like any post migration, not just background database migration. So that is something that we need to fix. So I'm just going to click in deployment rollback. Okay. So it says in bold that we need to make sure that the SRE runbook for rollback are followed. So vamos, all right. So this one is not working. Okay, so I think we still need to fix this part. And actually, I think we need probably to remove this one for our newest runbook. So right here is just saying that we can perform a rollback, but it is assuming a bunch of things. It is assuming that we know the package. In this point, we don't. So I guess I'm just going to return to the index because the README, because I recall that we just wrote. Oh, here it is. So it is on the last commit. And it seems we already have a rollback deployment runbook. So it's on the runbooks. Runbooks. Okay, it might be also a good idea to add it here or to add it like in the main one. So right here, like perform a rollback, something that is more handy. Okay, so runbooks, rollback deployment. Yay, this one seems better. Okay, a rollback should not be attempted with a deployment containing post-deployment migrations. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is to determine if it is safe to roll back. So we need to pick the environment. We are going to roll back staging. Let's go. Cool. Now I did that. Moving on. Determine the deploy to rollback to. In all of cases, this might be the latest deploy recorded. So in this case, we are on 093 and we might want to get back to 605. So I'm just going to double check that we are actually in this commit because I am very paranoid. I guess this is, yep, 093 and 093, woohoo. Okay, so we want to get back to this one, which is from 6 hours ago. Okay. Open the following link in your browser. I hope I get this one right because I always get confused with previous and latest. So previous is this one.
Can you try reading because I think it's written down in the Runbook. So instead of trying to remember which is previous and which is, just let's try to follow what we wrote.
Yeah, sure. So it says replace previous with a SHA of the deployed to rollback to, and replace latest with a SHA of the current deployment. So yeah, I guess it is easier. So latest, where am I? So is this one, which is the one we are currently running. And previous is the one that we want rollback to. So it's this one. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So we need to find out if there are post-deployment migrations on this diff. So I guess there is no very easy way to do this. Bunch of JavaScript. I'm just going to use post, or even better, DB. Okay, so we have a migration and no post migration. Awesome. Okay, yeah, it says right here, look for any files that are in the post migrate directory. We don't have that. So we have determined that it is safe to roll back. Okay, moving on. I noticed that Robert also added a new command. Should we try that out too? Awesome. Copy. Please ignore all my incident channels. Okay, awesome. This is very cool. So this is the current version and this is the previous. And yes, this is way much easier than us finding the environment and trying to build the compare link. And it is the same one, right? So it's, yeah, 6.5 and 0.93. So yeah, awesome. 61 commits. Here we go, 61 commits. So yeah, these are the same. Okay. So perhaps we can update this with Robert's command or add like 2 alternatives here. Okay, so open the following link in your browser and replace SHA with the SHA of the deployment to rollback to. Okay. So I'm just going to close this. And the SHA is this one, which is the previous one. Here we go. Okay, I did that. So you should see a single tag. And yes, we have a single tag. So it is possible for more than one tag to be displayed. In that case, just pick the most recent tag. So this is not the case. We only have one tag. And to update the package version, we need to replace the symbols because this is omnibus syntax and we don't want that. Okay. So you can now initiate a rollback to roll back to staging, which is what we want. Awesome. So I'm gonna copy this. And it is jobs from deploy. I need to replace the symbol. And I think it is just rollback. Right. So should we do it? Okay.
Yep, if that's the right package.
Here we go.
This is the bit where we realise we still haven't got our suspense music.
Maybe for the next demo. Okay, so let's see. Well, I can see that the pipeline is already smaller. It is not including the assets job nor the migrations, which is good. So it should be faster this time. I'm not sure
Still
by
have
how much.
Gitlab.
Yeah.
It still have Gitlab, but yeah, we need to
Okay.
convert those to manual jobs.
Okay. Okay, so yay, we are rolling back. Perform the rollback. And then after a rollback, now that it has been completed, exact process might differ based on the reason for the rollback, but in most cases, this will involve asking the appropriate developers to open a merge request. Okay, cool. So in the meantime that we are waiting, should we jump into the discussion?
As long as we keep an eye on the thing, I think we should make good use of our time and moving to the discussion.
Well, in that case, Alessio, you have the first point.
Sure. So let me go back here. It's weird because I can't see all of you. If it's, let me see if I can put it in. No. Okay. Well, I will imagine you are here and just keep talking. So I did a bit of reorganization of the issues and epics. So I think we have three main entry points here. One is the pipeline for code rollback, which is basically about everything we are doing so far. So it's about having a pipeline that can roll back and having Runbooks and having proper documentation. So that's the notes from this meeting so far have been converted in issues in there. And that's something. Then we have the assisted rollback, which is the parent epic for that one, which is more about the automation in itself. So is how can we prevent deployment to reach post-deployment migrations if we are unsure about the safety or things like that, or how can we stop an ongoing deployment and notify release managers to, yeah, this is rollback options, or maybe just continue. So this type of thing. So it's more about the automation around it. And then the last one is the single pipeline, which is kind of sneaking from last quarter into this one. So we closed phase one, which means that we are triggering deployment from release tools now. So there are something that we will need from phase two to actually have a rollback, assisted rollback as an option. So we're talking about splitting staging from cannery and production, and so having baking time and this kind of things inside release tools so that we can interleave our new checks like attempting, say, stopping before post-deployment migration or things like that. So that's basically the three main point that we need for rollbacks. That's it. You have, you have a question, Myra.
Yeah, so this one was kind of an easy scenario because staging was, well, not being utilized, at least for development. But I wonder if we want to roll back to a certain environment and we have an ongoing deployment at that moment. Like, what should we do? Should we cancel that deployment and roll back, or should we wait for the deployment and then roll back?
Well, if it's causing an outage, we suspected we stopped rolling out, right? We don't want to increase it. I suspect, but I think that we may need jar of help here, or maybe Scarbeck if he knows about it. So the broken link that we found again today, the one linking to the SRE Runbook, I suspect that is about this use case here, because what I'm thinking, maybe Scarbeck, you can double check my assumptions here, is that when we start rolling out, we remove machines from the load balancer. So in the event of breaking something within the deployment, either if we stop it manually or if the pipeline breaks for some reason, then we will not be able to run another deployment. Because at the beginning of the deployment, we check for the status of the fleet compared to load balancer, and those things will be messed up. And so we just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to, the check phase, the first one, we said, no, we can deploy. Just try to figure out what happens here. So my understanding is that that link was supposed to link to something explaining this, but I'm not sure. So definitely we need to clear this thing and figure out how can we automate this, because if we want to automate rollback, we don't need to ask an SRE to put machines back into whatever the right state is supposed to be. So that thing, does this answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I guess we might need an additional preparation step to make sure that perhaps those steps that you just described are included.
Do you want to talk, Alessia, a little bit about, so we've had some suggestions like for more how we can improve runbooks and things. Like, what are the next big steps for rollbacks or for single pipeline?
So do you mean outside of updating the drum books? And so we're talking about,
yeah,
okay.
Because I'm kind of like, it feels like we're quite close to having something which, at least on staging, we could run. So yeah, what are the next pieces?
So Myra, do you mind if I share so that it would be easier? Oh, thank you. So let me try to do this. Screen share. We go here. So I just want to tell all of you that today, and I don't know how this happened or what it is, I discovered the tab groups in this thing here, which is amazing. I don't know. So that I can pack things together and collapse all of them, and it's shipped with Chrome. So it's no extension. It's just Chrome. It basically changed my life. So back to the matter at hand, rollback. So Zoom, what have you done? Oh, Jesus. Zoom bar just got funky here. So let me try. So I think that, okay. So in assisted rollback, my impression here is that what we need the most is this one. So detecting post-deployment migration. Now, why I'm talking about this? Talking about this because Robert did the script that we checked today, but there is it's very handy, and I love that we have that one, but I would not trust that thing in case of a real incident, because something may go wrong during a deployment. So this is good because it can compare two packages. So it tells us exactly if given two packages, there are post-deployment migration, which is cool, but I would love to make sure that given a package that is rolling out, the check against the real database production tells me that there are no post-deployment migration, because it's the only state that matters, because in any other case, we may have an outage because we just rolled back and there are real post-deployment migrations. So that's why this is a little bit different. And on the, where it is, here, single pipeline. Here we have this one, phase 2, which is terrible here. So let me go back to the parent epic where there's a better feature here, this one. So we need to start not really thinking, but experimenting this. So we have a way forward here, which is, current situation is this one. So we have a stage in release to the tags, then we have a stage that do the waiting, and then we have a final stage that triggers. And this is triggering on deployer master. So it's a real deployment. We have another branch, which is next gen, which is forced to check mode. So whatever we trigger there, it will never run real deployment. It would just be check mode deployment. So I think that we should start working on something like this in parallel to the current situation. So my goal is that we have a stage when we tag, a stage when we wait, and then there is a stage where we trigger the old deployment on master, and in parallel, we trigger a staging only deployment on next gen branch, and then in the next stage of the pipeline, we trigger a canary one. Then we move production checks. So sorry, the baking time and baking time checks basically in release tools, and then we trigger production so that we can see if the refactoring that we are doing actually works in a safe environment, because we are just running check mode, Ansible in check mode, so it does nothing. We just compare the status of the machines. I think these are the first two big items, and then we can build on top of that.
Nice, sounds good to me. So this is going to be one of the first projects we've had in a while where the pieces of work are big enough that it's not just one project for everything, and it's also enough pieces that we can do in parallel so that lots of people can work on this stuff. So Jurek, I know you're heading into release management. Myra, as you rotate out over the next couple of weeks, like it'd be great to get you kind of owning some of these bigger pieces. And also see what Robert can pick up as well. He's obviously heading into release management as well, but just to kind of share, there'll hopefully be enough kind of like these pieces will be large enough that they will have their own investigation, and we'll need to work out like what's involved, and there'll be tasks that we'll need to break out from this and schedule. So they're sort of mini pieces, like not projects, but they're bigger than, hey, put a feature flag on this thing. So hopefully they're interesting enough without us having to need lots of extra projects. Cool. So what do we want to try and have ready for a demo next week? Because I think this worked really nicely, that we had a load of runbook changes that Jurek, you put in last week after going through the demo, which was super awesome. Robert put in the new command, which was awesome. Alessio, you've ripped out a load of stuff from the pipeline, which is also awesome. I'm guessing next week might be a little bit more challenging just because this week's busy with release management. But do we have, like, is there a kind of goal we can set that of something which we'd like to aim for that we could try out for, like, to make a useful demo next week?
I see two potential items here. One is further documentation updates. You know, we've got this excellent chat ops command that Robert has rolled out, and it works very well. Alessio has pointed out that he also would not trust that tool during a rollback in production. I would like to see that issue worked on. This is my personal opinion and not opinions of my employer.
Should we aim to roll back canary? Or that is too soon?
I don't think we will ever roll back canary because we drain it. It will be safer to drain, and I mean, eventually maybe we will, but I would not focus on that right now.
Yeah, I guess I was going into stages, but I guess if we don't want or we don't want to test on canary, should we go straight and test on production?
Well, if we have an outage, it's not about, oh, you're talking about testing the process, yeah. But it's,
Hang on, who's doing the demo? Who are you nominating, Myra? I feel like you should complete this thought.
let's remove Gitlab first. It's safer if Gitlab is outside of the of the equation, because I don't trust that part now.
I'm kind of inclined to also agree, like with Scalbeck, that like having that source of truth of like, is this safe, would be a good thing to have in place at the same time.
I have a dumb question. Is a rollback basically the same thing like a roll forward, like a deployment? But we leave certain things out, right? I mean, I was thinking if you would switch the release numbers, could we use a rollback to roll forward instead of doing a normal deployment?
We don't know how many things will break. And so the problem is the order of operation. So Gitlab is the big unknown here.
Because if a rollback would use the same methodology like holding forward, like a deployment, then we could basically test in production, right?
So the thing is, the only thing that we have is that during a regular roll forward, we do Gitlab first and then the fleet. During a rollback, we do fleet first and Gitlab after. But we are discussing about removing Gitlab and having this, let's say, as a manual job ready as soon as we roll back the fleet. So in theory, it's either doing this first or after, it should be fine. But what we are, the thing we discussed a couple of weeks ago, so before you joined. So what we are suggesting here is that deltas are smaller enough to assume that Gitlab is backward compatible, because usually this is the case. Also, we just upgrade Gitlab without much problems. So it tends to be very backward and forward compatible. So our best option is to say, don't mess with Gitlab in case of an outage, but have the options to eventually roll back that as well. So this is the bigger picture here.
So
should we go
completed.
through? Oh, sorry. Oh,
Yeah,
fleet
no, it's
completed. Great.
Yeah, and we are rolling back Gitlab.
Yeah, sure. Let's check the version on the help page. I was also proposing that after this.
Yeah, now it's pointed out to the last one that we wanted, so yay.
Nice. Did all the tests pass and everything?
No, we are still not yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool. Okay.
Yeah, we are like, yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. That's fast though. Nice.
So what about we take a look together at the rollback documentation improvement issues, because I think that some of those were already addressed, so that we can check together.
Why don't we try and find that link? Because whilst we've got Henry here as well, I think we've got a decent chance of somewhere in the SRE runbooks, that thing exists, right? It's just the link that's broken.
Most broken links are just moved into the uncategorized, I can't spell it out, directory in the Runbooks docs directory.
Okay, so we have the file name, so we can try to figure out if it's there. So point number one is it is hard to find rollback procedure. Well,
Still
this is
true.
nice because it's still true, right? So we need to add a link because there's an index page.
Yeah,
at the
I can
beginning,
open an
so-
MR for that. Let me do that. I'll take that one.
Okay, so the remediation steps are not entirely clear and could use some of dates improved readability. So because this is about the severity 1 incident, because when we first wrote this, we started from severity 1 incident. So I would say that this is no longer the case because now we have a real runbook for the. It's just that it's not linked, so it's a bit hard to find. So I will tick this. We are missing a way to appropriately and concisely determine if there are blockers that will prevent us from being able to perform the rollbacks. This is no longer true, but we need to update the runbook because we have the script, which gives us a good understanding. And yeah, so I would suggest, so I don't know who will take this issue of updating it, not to delete the procedure because it's extremely valuable. Just remove it from the critical path, put it down below in the runbook or in another place and link. If this doesn't work, this is the manual procedure. We never know. Maybe the outage is about chat-ups not working.
Yeah, who wants to take that bit?
I can do it. I'll do this one.
Awesome, thanks.
So broken link. So this is the broken link. So SRE runbook for rollback is supposed to be master how to upgrade and rollback MD. So where do you think, Henry, this should be?
Sorry, which one is missing? How is it called?
So I just zoom control.
How to upgrade and I would
Yeah,
first
this
look into the docs directory in Runbooks and then uncategorized.
Uncategorized. So,
Because we once automatically moved everything away and everything not being a service is in this directory now.
what was the name of the file?
Ooh, forgot it.
Something about rollbacks, I guess.
Upgrade and rollback. It's in the uncategorized directory.
So we generate most of the services runbooks now automatically, or parts of it at least, and directories. And so we moved everything else, which is not a service, into the uncategorized directory, which is not generated in any way.
Okay. Good. So is this part still relevant? Let's take a look together. I mean, upgrades, rollback, blah, blah, blah. So this is, so the DBRE is about understanding, I mean, I think we automated the DBRE part, at least in case there are no post-deployment migration. Because I suspect the DBRE here is about trying to figure out if the database will be able to run on the older version. Yeah, consideration for rollback.
I'm not sure if those PagerDuty shortcuts are still working.
I'm quite sure they are not. Well, the important thing
by
here,
the time we start the rollback procedure, we should already be inside of an incident call. So like technically this statement is like well after we've already started this process.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. I think that maybe the intention here was something like delivery team thinks that they have to roll back. And so this is how they start. But yeah, I agree with you. This is not the case. No, I was hoping to find some reference to the machine being outside of the balancer, things like that, but nothing is here. My gut feeling here is that we will be better without this page and without the link.
One problem is that if some SRE needs to look it up, like the SRE on call maybe, he will not easily find the runbooks in the other project, because we always look into this one, and I remember myself struggling to find the other runbooks for deployments, right? So maybe you should still have some link to look into that.
Yeah. So we replaced this with something that tells you where are the runbooks for deployments.
Yeah, just a link.
This is a great idea. So I stopped sharing for some reason that is not clear to me, but in any case. Okay, so just okay. So we can improve this runbook with better instruction and wording about post-deployment migration. I think this is the thing that this is the point that also Myra pointed out today, that because this runbook here refers to the severity 1 incident, because it is the one that we were running the first time, and it still refers to having background migrations, and it should be more general. So I think this is still to be done.
I think we should maybe review that whole runbook, because it's quite old and it doesn't really fit in with our new, like the way we manage incidents. Like it's got some useful pointers in it, but I'm not sure I'd dare follow much of it.
Well, but the severity 1 is a good one.
Yeah.
It was recently wrote by Jar.
It's old though.
I don't think it's so old, but I think that I'm quite sure that someone from support added the extra bits about the background migration, but because they had specific problem with background migrations, but it was not safe. They didn't have the rollback as a delivery team has a rollback in mind, so it was just a specific problem. So I think we can just extend that and make sure that all the relevant information are linked together. The last one, I think we are done. Steps are mixed with documentation, and the new runbook has just the steps that you need, and then there is the documentation, which is in another page. So I think this is okay. So back to action items. I think, well, we can try to close the gap here in this documentation with the thing that we found today and leftovers from last week, as well as trying to disable Gitlab rollbacks if someone wants to volunteer on that. I don't know.
You can see maybe if Robert has time when he thaws out. You missed it, Maren. He's in an ice storm, which is very un-Texas.
Wait, hold up. Robert is in Texas and he's in an ice storm. Like,
yes, correct.
What is the backstory here? Like, he moved to Alaska?
Global warming, I think, is the backstory. So yeah, until he thaws out, we won't see much of him.
Yorick, next week is your turn. You need a sandstorm from Netherlands.
We have those in summers. Well, it's not a sandstorm, but like Sahara Desert can occasionally, once every couple of years blow over, and then all the cars are brown. I don't think we'll have that this year.
Oh, you've just set this up, right? Like it's definitely happening, and it's going to be 10 times worse, right?
We had our snowstorm. Like I think we've had it for the year.
Cool. Okay, well, let's get that on the board then. So the next time we've got a few little documentation things we can tweak on, but the next issue to pick up is the is the Gitlab one. I'll find the link.
Yeah, this is, I mean, these are the smallest thing with the weekly demo. If we want to start working on something, say, more long-term, there's the understanding the presence, if there are post-deployment migration, so that we can automate. So checking the status with the database, as well as starting splitting the release triggering. Yes, deploy triggering. We are running QA smoke tests.
I had a discussion item. Shall I proceed while we wait, or maybe save it for next week?
No, go for it. Like, how long have we got
Okay,
for it? As long as they've got, like, if whilst with the QA tests are running, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we have never really talked about the state of the database after we finish a rollback. I'm curious if we want to have a conversation about what we should do afterwards, because theoretically, we don't migrate if there's post-deploy migrations, but as we saw with today's, there are migrations to the database. So when you do a rollback, nothing is reversing those migrations that were completed. So at this moment in time, staging now has, or could be in an awkward state where, let's assume we rolled back because some code was reliant on a database migration and it ran successfully, but now they decided to re-implement the code in a future merge request. Now they may need to touch that database migration again. That might conflict with the old migration. Like maybe this is just a checklist of if your MR was reverted to fix something, you need to re-review the database migrations. But the problem that I have right now is that the database is not going to reflect reality, and a developer's workstation is not going to reflect the same. I don't know what kind of protections we have in place to ensure this, and I don't know what we have to maybe roll back those database migrations after the fact.
So I think that the process that we sort of historically have taken with reverts that involve migrations is that typically you turn the old migration into a no-op. So you just remove the code from the up and down method, and then you have to create a new migration that perhaps runs the same thing, but checks, hey, if it did succeed properly, don't run it. There's actually a good example I ran into recently. I had a merge request with a migration that added a index, and that timed out on staging and production, and then led to this other error showing up. The fix there was to basically mark it as a no-op, introduce a new migration that first we check, hey, did we actually succeed with the index? If so, don't bother doing it again. And then it would say, hey, if the index exists but it's invalid, remove it and then create it again. And so you end up with these migrations where there's no-op because of incident, blah, and then a link, something like that.
But this is a clearly defined process within engineering already?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
it
I
is,
see
it is.
some people
Okay.
nodding.
The database documentation, this is defined. And yeah, so.
I just want to point out that
It is
Alessio
defined.
nodded
Yeah,
and Myra shook her head.
yeah. I don't recall a documentation with that.
I'm quite sure it exists. Let me find it for you.
Yeah, let's look it up while we're at it.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, because I think we rely on database maintainers, like on a person actually saying, hey, we need to check staging because this one was executed but then reverted. So we need like an if condition here.
yeah, let's see. So I have the migration guide open. Let's see if any mention of there's no mention of revert, but there is reversibility. That says, oh, if you can't revert it, do this. But that's just when you introduce the migration and there's no way to undo it. At least in the migration style guide, I cannot find a mention of this. Migration revert maybe. Yeah, I would not be surprised if it's not actually covered. It looks like it might actually not be documented.
I recall reading this somewhere, so I'm quite sure it does exist. Let's try to figure out if it doesn't exist, but I'm quite sure it exists.
Doesn't it tell you something that you can't find it?
Well, we have it a little bit buried about deleting migrations, which is kind of similar, but it is not related to incidents.
Yeah, that's one, deleting migration.
I think I wrote that one like a year ago. I don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's documented, but not quite the way I think you would expect. Like there's nothing that says, if your merge request is reverted, here's the process for migrations. So you might want to, pass that along with the database team. But yeah, either way, to answer Scarbeck, the process is basically you turn it into no op and then you sort of start over.
There's something that I would like to point out as well on this is that by no means this will be in a situation where something got wrong, we roll back and we just keep working as like nothing happened, right? We are in an incident, so we have a dev escalation. We expect people with eyes on it. Release manager will not just promote a random build and move forward. So we are still in an incident. It can be mitigated, but we are still in an incident. So I expect release managers at least to be on it with knowing what is happening, right? So at least this is my point on this. And when we run forward again, if the same migration isn't touched and is in a red round on that environment, would just be a no hope. And this is exactly the state in which production runs when Canary is upgraded. So I would not be scared of code implications, because when we start deploying to Canary, it's in reverse, but it's the same thing. When we start deploying to Canary, we run migrations, but for ours, main stage is still running the old version. So it's exactly the same in terms of code running and database state is exactly the same situation.
But yeah, it's also a great point. Like this, a rollback doesn't unblock deployments, it just restores user experience. So we will still be in an incident and we'll have to manage the revert and things like that. How's the rollback?
We are still executing Q&A. I think it is going to take some more minutes, but I will call it like a successful demo today because we actually did a rollback, so yay.
Nice, that's great. I didn't see any, no one screamed, no
Completed now.
incidents fired off.
It's
so.
green.
Nice, that's great stuff. And so that was about 15 minutes quicker without the assets. Yeah, awesome. Great stuff. Is there anything else anyone wants to mention or discuss? No? Cool. Another successful rollback. Well done. All right, speak soon. Bye.